maybe there's some creatures that are a little bit, kind of tricksters. Maybe there's some that are more like scientists. And who knows?
I hope it is aliens, and I hope it ends in like an alliance sort of thing where they kind of help us get through the next step.
We had an alien invasion. Suddenly all of our differences on Earth they wouldn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Like, who cares about our border dispute or whatever? Like, there's fucking spacecraft coming down. Like, they're zapping us and taking us. Like, we got to work together.
You can't go out into space and represent America. It's going to mean nothing to other worlds. You're going to be seen as people from Earth.
Okay, welcome everybody to yet another kitchen sink microscopy, another exciting episode. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and we would absolutely love it if you would like and share this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. It's all the same to us.
Yes, we are the #1 Nobel Prize deserving channel on YouTube. According to me, Casey Rochford. And we would love it if you would like and go buy our music, which is at the end of the episode, which is the #1 Grammy deserving music on YouTube, according to me. So
yeah, who else does like an epic YouTube series and also writes music? Oh man.
Yeah, that's pretty unique, I think. So
yeah,
iTunes, and Spotify, and ksmvidcast.com. These are all your hubs for finding the cool shit we do. So
yeah.
So what shall we inject our philosophies into today?
Well, sorry, it's a little bit hot up here, so if I pass out mid recording, sorry about that. I did my best. I'll just drink more beer. It's nice and cold. But I think with this being like we're in June now. At the time of this recording, it's the 1st of June, and sneakily injected into the COVID relief bill was a request, a demand, a mandate. I'm not quite certain what it actually is. I don't know how all that stuff works behind the scenes. But there was, let's call it a request. There was a request for the Pentagon to release basically open all the data that they have on UFOs. And I'm super stoked about that, like unclassified. So hopefully it'll eventually get back to us little people, I guess. But it's something that I'm like really, really interested in, as is space in general, space exploration. Like, I've been into that ever since I was a kid. Yes, the space shuttle is the stupidest thing we could have ever built. But it's so cool. Like, the space shuttle is, I love it. It's so sexy. Like, watching that thing take off and, going back, researching stuff about the Apollo program, how they built the computer. Oh my God, the Apollo guidance computer is one of the most remarkable feats of engineering of all time.
Well, who does this get declassified too? Like
Congress.
We won't necessarily get to
You somebody might leak it. I mean, it's sure that it's going to get back eventually to people, to us, but it's supposed to go to Congress and it's unclassified. So in theory, it should.
good old Uncle Bernie will probably tell us if there's something we need to know.
somebody in there. There are a lot of people in Congress actually that are. This is a big deal to them.
Yeah.
So if they get their hands on it, you could be sure it's going to be out there pretty soon. But that's my point, is like, there's something out there. There's stuff out there. There's things to learn. There's exploration to be had. Even if we're the only sentient life in the universe, it's worth exploring and going out there and seeing what we can find. And so, space has always been kind of like a big deal to me. Like that, I freaking love it.
I mean, like, I think it's ludicrous to think we're the only life in the entire universe. I do think it's a little impractical that something would be able to traverse such a great distance to find us and then not have themselves just be known. Like,
well, okay, so
but I'm thinking, egocentrically, in an Earth, like what we know already sort of aspect. Like there could be somebody with far in excess of our own technology that somehow changed the composition of matter or something to the point where they could travel great distances in a short time. And it could have happened.
Here's the thing, there's a lot of things you brought up there. The engine, let's say, whatever drives these craft, is not something that we understand terrestrially. It's not like a thrust, like inertia based kind of system. It's something that is completely defies that. When you like, I highly encourage everybody to look at the few videos we have. These craft are able to travel at super fast speeds and stop on a dime and go up into space, go down, travel across the surface of the water, dive under the water like it's nothing, fly out of the water, like make a 90-degree turn at high velocity. Like that there's no inertia going on there because anything inside would be completely destroyed. So clearly the engine that drives this is something novel that we don't understand.
We'll say the life form is maybe from a more dense atmosphere and dense gravity sort of environment where they can handle such G forces because they've evolved.
Well, but there's an upper limit for that. I mean, if you're going like supersonic speeds and just do a 90-degree turn, I don't care where you come from, you are hamburger at that point.
Maybe they don't have corporeal form, but they can control their immediate environment.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of questions to be asked there, but you would pose the idea, like, why don't they present themselves, right?
Ooh, what if they're ghosts?
We call
ghosts, like those were aliens all along. But
yeah. Well, you would pose the question, why don't they show themselves, descend on the White House or the Kremlin or something and be like, hey, here we are. We came from another planet. Well, you and I are both huge Star Trek fans, and the whole idea of the Prime Directive, right? You don't interfere with developing species. And the thing is, the more I've dug into this, the more clear it is that the technology that these things, whatever they are, these objects are possess or are made of, is so far beyond our understanding that even if we had it and we dissected it, we could never replicate it. It's like, imagine, we think, well, okay, all we have to do is see it, right? And we could just like look at it, reverse engineer it, and we could make a copy. Well, to a point. But But imagine if you brought like your home computer or your cell phone. A cell phone's a good example. You took your cell phone back to the Stone Age and you handed it to the brightest, smartest people back in the Stone Age, and they took it apart and looked at it. Like, could they replicate it?
No, it'd be impossible because you have so many novel discoveries that all built on the shoulders of one another to
Yeah.
culminate in that piece of technology. Like reverse engineering that would be out of the question. Like, so I completely understand where you're coming from. Like, I'm thinking like my positive outlook on this is that we'll find out that yes, there have been aliens and we've been in contact with them, and it is a prime directive sort of situation. Because honestly, if they were malignant in nature, we'd be dead by now.
Yeah, if they wanted to conquer us, that would be very, very easy.
Yeah.
If you can simultaneously, if you could go in moments from flying in the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds to going up into space to coming back down, going under the water, evading the most technologically advanced fighter jets that we have today, like as if they don't even matter. Like it's almost like it's a game. Yeah, you could totally take over Earth. It would be nothing. So sure, it's pretty evident that there isn't necessarily a malignant, like a negative intent there, perhaps. But I don't necessarily think that it's one species. I don't think that the other planet, right? You look at Earth, right? We have people on this planet. Well, a bunch of different animals and creatures, and we have people. We have our Homo sapiens and stuff like that. But even those groups are different. There's a bunch of different people with different philosophies and behaviors and objectives, and you could expect the same sort of thing on another planet. So maybe there's some creatures that are a little bit kind of tricksters. Maybe there's some that are more like scientists, and who knows. But it's pretty clear, like, and I am definitely, I've been very skeptical of this, although I've seen some things. So take that for what you will. I've seen some things firsthand, but I'm still pretty skeptical of like what it is. But it's very clear to me, after having looked very, very deeply into this, that the phenomenon of I don't know, UFOs or UAVs or whatever you want to call them, it's real. Like it's a real thing. Even the Pentagon is like, that exists.
Well, they are definitely unidentified.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean it's aliens. That totally doesn't mean that it's aliens.
They can be time travelers for all we know.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, it's going to be cool to find out. I hope it is aliens, and I hope it ends in like an alliance sort of thing where they kind of help us get through the next step. Like maybe they're seeing things like SpaceX and they're saying, okay, you guys do have the potential. You are ready to get out there. The only thing I think that, because you mentioned there are differences, and we've talked about this before with Star Trek, like why is there only one Klingon language and all this stuff, and the whole like Federation ideals is that a planet has to be unified before joining. Like you can't go out into space and represent America. It's going to mean nothing to other worlds. You're going to be seen as people from Earth, right? Yeah. So you need to act and actually be people from Earth and not Americans. Like we have to shed like, that tribalism and expand it to the tribe of Earth, right?
Exactly. Like, or you could be like Japanese or Canadian or whatever, like wherever you come from, Russian or something. That's my hope.
Yeah.
I think that something like this, and we're kind of ignoring the primary. You brought up the primary topic, but I think it's all related. I think it would be a very beneficial thing, helpful for humankind to kind of gain perspective, to realize that, oh yeah, there's these other beings out there, and they're super advanced, and we're not alone, and all this stuff like that. The way that would change the interactions between people on Earth would probably put us on course to accelerate our development, in terms of space travel and technology. We'd be far less inclined to fight amongst each other and far more inclined to work together, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
It, it I encourage it. I welcome it. Like, I can't wait. Even if these beings or whatever are malevolent, like, in fact, that could also be good too, because if we had an alien invasion, um suddenly all of our differences on Earth would really, they wouldn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Like, who cares about our border dispute or whatever? Like, there's fucking spacecraft coming down, like they're zapping us and taking us. Like, we got to work together. Like, I think it
Well,
would be a good thing.
that actually would be a good thing. It's probably what we need actually as a kick in the ass, because we can't wrap our heads around how we would create, like surface to air, like immediate sort of defense jets or whatever, like something that could like quickly like go out into space and like zoom around and like get into a laser fight or whatever, because we're so hung up on like fossil fuels. It's like, how would we put enough oil into this thing to like get it through the atmosphere and actually be able to maneuver and stuff? And it's like, we need to get beyond the limitations of such a primitive form of energy, right?
Well, we are. I mean, we've kind of gone beyond that with like nuclear power, although it's very much in its infancy, even though it's coming up on like a century old. But it's still very, very new. And we're primitive, like you'd said. Like, the human race is very primitive. Like, we sure you could, okay, there's the technological side and there's the societal side. And sure, we've learned a lot of things. We've harnessed the power of the atom. We've figured out transistors and all kinds of things. We've harnessed electricity and whatnot. You name it. We figured out a lot of cool shit. But we're still the same people we've been for millennia. We haven't really gotten that far, societally. So that's the whole reason, I think, why an alien species that's really advanced and has been around perhaps longer than we have, maybe their planet has been around for a million years, millions of years longer than us. That's why they wouldn't bother contacting us, because I mean, we're maybe just kind of an interesting thing to observe. You look at ants crawling around on the ground and you're like, huh, isn't that quaint? And that's probably how we would be to something like that. Maybe they could see the potential, because we do have potential. I mean, certainly we could certainly go a lot further than we are now. But we're a long way off, a very long way off. So at that point, like, why even bother interacting with this species, the human race, like this primitive, backwards, like, they barely know anything, and they can't even get along together, without like starting wars and nuking each other and shit. So I could see alien species kind of being a little hesitant in that regard. Like, hey, if we start interacting and they start learning things, maybe they're going to weaponize that. because that's what they do. Like they basically weaponize everything, these fucking humans.
I just had a thought. Like it makes perfect sense in terms of like, since we invented radio technology, how we could be found by another life form out there. But what about before that? There's all the ancient aliens theories and stuff like that, may have just as much credence as any other UFO sighting today. But what back then would have tipped them off to this needle in a very giant haystack? How would they have possibly stumbled upon us?
That is a really good point. And that kind of makes me think maybe they're not from so far away.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's
you said,
true.
maybe it's time travelers, maybe it's interdimensional travelers, maybe what we see, if you've ever read Flatland, right? Like maybe these little craft we see are just sort of like the 3-dimensional penetration from a 4-dimensional object.
Can we say penetration without being demonetized?
In this context, yes. Yeah, because 4-dimensional penetration can't happen as far as we know it. So
new form of porn.
4th dimensional. Oh man.
Whole different kind of 4D than you're thinking.
If anybody's gonna make it happen, it'll be me. But
Eric 4D Rosenblatt.
Oh man. Okay, before I overheat, let's move on. So I mean, the original topic, and all this stuff I think ties together, and we could definitely come back to some other things, but the original inspiration for this is like SpaceX, right? And SpaceX is not the only one, but there are a multitude of private space travel companies building spaceships and rockets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it kind of elicits a bit of mixed feelings here and there. Personally, I am fucking excited. I think it's great. Like, yeah, let's do it. They're doing amazing things. And just talking about SpaceX, but again, they're not the only one. There's quite a few different companies.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, they've had some speed bumps and some failures, but so did NASA.
Yeah.
So it's not like that's really any different either. It's probably pound for pound, but as far as like leaps and bounds and progressive sort of, the whole like landing, taking off like this and then landing it like this, like that
vertical takeoff and landing.
Yeah. Like
well, that has actually happened before.
Has it?
There have been vertical takeoff and landing rockets. Yeah. Now they kind of sucked. So SpaceX's are actually functional.
Sort of. Yeah.
Well, okay. All right. Well, let me qualify that by saying every single SpaceX launch that has people in it has been 100% successful. The failures were experimental.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We need that kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
I saw that rocket launch where it came down on its side and then the rockets fired at the last second and almost corrected and then it exploded. And I was like, yeah, that's a total success. And I looked online and everybody was freaking out like, oh, it was a total failure. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It did what it was supposed to do. It just didn't quite do it right. And they're testing things.
Yeah.
But they don't do it with people inside. That's what the Soviet Union would do. Although I do have to say, the Soyuz is probably the safest space travel vehicle currently in production. Very, very reliable, very safe. Like if I were to go up into space, I'd probably feel safest in the Soyuz. So a little bit of Soviet technology that really works.
Very, very reliable.
Where are the nuclear vessels? Oh yeah. I mean, there's kind of like a certain proportion of people who take issue with the idea that it's private. Like if it's some kind of profiteering endeavor that somehow it's going to be dangerous or something.
I don't see it becoming more dangerous as a result of being private necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
like you say, they're doing all the testing and whatnot, and they're working closely with NASA, so it's not like it's 100% private, right? Like, and they're going through all the regulations and stuff. I mean, it's like that'd be like saying, like, well, it's bullshit that Boeing creates planes. It should be made by the U.S. government alone.
Yeah.
You know, like they still play by the U.S. government rules of safety. So it.
Well, and they have to because they're going to the ISS. Like if this were some Elon Musk, like I'm going to go to Mars today kind of endeavor, like, well, he could do whatever the hell he wants. But yeah, now it makes sense to work with NASA, not because they're a government agency, but because NASA has a vast amount of experience. They've been doing this shit for a long, long time.
Yeah, and
so
you gotta
be able to work.
You can't reinvent the wheel. You got to work with the existing knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. It's incremental, and I mean, I think it's awesome. It opens new doors because instead of it being some sort of official, process where only certain people are elected. Now with SpaceX, there's all kinds of new options. Like private individuals can go into space. In fact, I think, isn't it coming up soon? Maybe it already happened, where the first person with a prosthetic limb is going into space. Huh. Like that would have never happened in NASA because they wanted everybody to be perfect.
Now, so I mean, I'm not here to poo-poo fun. You know, like if you've got the money and you want to go up just for fun, that's great. But like, I mean, like, I don't see how that particular aspect of it really moves us forward on the game board at all.
Well, porn made the internet, right? I mean, fun does drive things. That drones didn't get so good because they were an effective thing, and some official saw that they were good and invested in them, and they carefully crafted them. No, people said, "Hey, this is cool. I want one," and companies started making them. People started buying them, and they did a bunch of stuff. They succeeded and failed, and eventually we've gotten to where we are now. Entertainment is a valuable driving force, I guess, for development. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask, where do we need to be in a technological sense, for spacefaring sort of sense?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like, I was talking with somebody about this over the weekend, actually, a little bit, and the whole idea of Mars. I brought up the idea of Venus, as we've done an episode on.
Yep.
Which
nice.
Maybe we should link to. But that's the whole thing, right? Like, where should we be putting all of our chips, and like what type of technology, what type of end game do we have in this? And like, should the people that can afford a 6-figure ticket to space, like, should their be something else that we get out of that? Should they be participating in some kind of study? Should they sign on to be up there for a certain amount of time and see how that goes? And,
Well, here's the thing, they do. The just the moon mission alone yielded, we just think of like Apollo 11, and that's one small step for mankind, and blah blah blah, and the planting the flag and moon buggies and all this stuff. No, all of the tens of thousands of people working behind the scenes, all of the work that went on, developed all kinds of new things that actually matter here on Earth. Like the drive to do that brought us so much. We don't even realize it. Like how much that mission mattered to Earth. It didn't matter that much in the sense of going to the moon, because the moon's a kind of a stupid place to go, honestly. It's kind of shitty.
There's nothing happening. It's like Salt Lake City on a Saturday night.
Yeah, unless, well, there's some interesting mysteries on the moon. There could possibly be some tunnels under there, some lava tubes or something full of aliens or something. Who knows? The more you look into it, it's a little bit interesting. But the mission, the mission itself yielded actually a lot of stuff. We learned just in that endeavor, like trying to do that and accomplish that, we developed so much that changed Earth overall, like stuff that we take for granted today. In so many different fields. It's not just engineering, it's everything. Like we learned a lot developing the ISS, all the space programs in general. So I think even if the mission itself is simply, oh hey, we're gonna go to Mars and we're gonna build a base and this kind of thing, and yeah, that wouldn't that be fun, and I have got a bunch of money so I'm going to pay my way. Well, it's not something we've done before, so new things are going to have to be developed to overcome the challenges, and there are many challenges. If you're gonna go to Mars, it's not going to be fun. There are a lot of challenges, and in overcoming those challenges, there will be things developed that will have far-reaching implications for everybody else, everybody still left on Earth. Even something simple, like really simple things like metallurgy or plastics or something like that. Whatever it is, we don't even know. There's no way to tell. I mean, we haven't sent people to Mars yet, so who knows what's going to come out of that. But I can say it'll be a game changer, and so all of our lives are going to be different because of it.
You probably know more about this than me, but is it SpaceX or NASA? I thought I heard somebody's trying to develop almost like a shipyard, let's say, because like obviously it would be far less fuel consumption if you could take off from orbit
or from the moon. There's actually a couple different ideas being entertained there. Because the moon has a sixth of Earth's gravity, so taking off from the moon or from the moon's orbit is a lot less energetically expensive than Earth. Earth is pretty big, and Mars is very far away. Very, very far away. But if you think about the thrust power that we have now, if you began that in the void of space, basically, or just the outer rim of our atmosphere, whatever, if you use that much energy, could that cut down your travel time quite a bit? Probably. It would, as long as some of the resources came from lower gravity places. If you had to ferry everything up from Earth to orbit and assemble it there, well, it's kind of a net zero at that point. Like it you
Well,
still
is
have
it
to,
though? Like, I mean,
yeah,
like, yeah, you got to get it up there in the first place, but the end result is like if you could get to Mars within like, like a pretty decent amount of time and actually like ferry over some stuff to build a similar, you know, situation where you could basically make it so you could come and go relatively easily. I mean,
well,
I
yeah,
think that's
that
a huge win.
it would be. However, if all the materials come from Earth, you're still dealing with every single pound requires so much thrust to get into orbit. So whatever it is, if it's like building materials or fuel or whatever, it's all going to be the same, whether it's a giant rocket or a whole bunch of tiny pieces that are assembled in orbit into a rocket. It'll be the same amount of thrust. However, if you could send a small, say, like, I don't know, nanobot or robot team to the moon to excavate the moon and turn some stuff into fuel and materials and build stuff on the moon, so less mass is being transported, only just the robots, and then you send a little shuttle to the moon, and boom, you enter the newly built rocket ship off the moon. Well, yeah, that would actually significantly decrease the resource need, I guess,
Yeah.
resources in materials or energy or whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge upfront cost, yes, but like the fact that you can like then reuse spacecraft over and over again rather than like crashing it into the burning up in the atmosphere and crashing into the ocean and oh, that's gone, hundreds of millions of
Well,
dollars.
by
Like,
cost, I mean expenditure, right? Like dollars or whatever. Yeah, that doesn't really matter. I'm thinking like energy costs and stuff that you have to excavate and put together and put into orbit.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
all of that
materials.
still would over time pay for itself, I think, because you would be using way less of it than if you had to like originate from the earth each and every time and then waste that craft each and every time,
Yeah, yeah. As long as you had some other source of material, like asteroids or whatnot. You want to mine like iridium and iron from some asteroid. Well, that would be a good starting point. That would cut down significantly on the amount of mass you have to like push into space. And it takes a huge amount of energy to do that. A huge amount of energy.
Okay, so that's a good point. So what's the most important thing? Would it be colonizing another place, knowing the impending I don't know, ticking time bomb, let's say, here on Earth? Is that more important, or would it be finding a more abundant source of raw materials?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I
Because
think
you kind of
both
have
are
to put your
valid.
all into one or the other, really. Like,
Well, I think both are valid. We as humans want to survive.
uh,
We've been explorers too. We explore. We go out there, and from the earliest days, people making rafts and traveling across the oceans and colonizing other
you brought
places.
up a good point. In order to do that, resources, we need them,
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And if we could find it in a place that requires less, well, okay, think about it this way. Imagine if you were one of these early colonizers, right? Like the Vikings or Spaniards or whatever. A long time ago, you build a ship and you send people off to colonize somewhere or explore, right? Because we explore, then we find a place and we're like, hey, this is nice. Let's live here. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for millennia,
do you
actually.
have a flag?
Yeah. And so imagine if we had to carry everything we needed to the other place. You can't just make a small raft or a boat with like a few people on it and like row and sail across an ocean. You have to carry all of the building materials with you. So all the wood, all the food that you would ever need, all the animals, everything. It would have to be like Noah's Ark or something like that, like full of everything. Because when you get there, there's nothing, and that's Mars. We don't know what's there, and yeah, so you would have to carry everything with you. So imagine how big that boat would be, how hard it would be to row or sail that boat, and that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Um, Not to say we shouldn't do it. In fact, that the spirit of human exploration, it's kind of ignores all of those concerns. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is a huge problem. Like we have so much of our ecosystem that took billions of years to create that we depend on for a basic infrastructure of any sort. And then you throw in all of these like elements that want to kill you, and it's that many more resources that you need to call upon. And indigenously there's nothing there for you to cultivate,
yeah.
basically.
I mean,
like a little soil, and that's about it.
And the soil's not exactly hospitable. I mean, yeah, you could watch The Martian all you want and think you can grow plants in the soil on Mars, but you're probably not going to be able to do that. You might. I mean, it's entirely
Well, they did
possible.
like a little micro terraform sort of thing, didn't they?
Yeah, but that's a movie.
Yeah.
But
like, I mean, that's what you would have to do, right? Like you would have to start small and create that sort of, and you'd have to like force a fast forward evolution on that planet to mimic Earth.
Well, and then what do you gain from that? Like you're on a planet with what is a third of Earth's gravity and has no magnetic field, so it's basically bombarded by radiation all the time. So you have to live underground. You can never come back to Earth.
You can never check Facebook.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrible to live there. I mean, although people live in Antarctica and the northern, like the North Pole kind of area, so people do live and potentially thrive in those places, and we should. Like you'd asked before, like what's the point of this? Like, is it resources or survival? And I think it's really important that we spread ourselves out there. We can't get that far. I mean,
yeah.
we our furthest out probe has barely punctured the outer fringes of the solar system. That's all we've done in the entire time we've existed on this planet, is to get something past the Oort clouds. Like, or actually, yeah, I mean,
well, I agree with you. I agree that we need to get out there and spread our population out. But the more I think about your point about resources, the more I realize, like, I don't think we can efficiently do that in enough time without first finding a more abundant source of resources. But the problem with that is, how do we make it so that greed doesn't just try to use that to create a more extended status quo here? Like, let's just keep things the same way rather than try to like expand and use it to go out there.
Well, that's a matter of human psychology. You just have to ignore all that stuff. And there are going to be people who try to take advantage of things. But the thing is, the things we learn along the way change everything. And so maybe we don't necessarily colonize another planet, but the attempt to colonize yields things that completely, it's like a paradigm shift here on Earth. Maybe in the course of a Mars mission, we figure out like, oh, well, we can build an inexhaustible source of energy, or some kind of shielding, or some medical technology, or who knows. But because those things are so far out there, they're so huge and require vast, like, it's not like just driving to another city. This is a huge thing, and it isn't something that we've done before. So the things that we learn could definitely impact the world for the better.
I just had a biology thought, like I do. I wonder if this is a mule situation where we can't really expect to ever propagate our species further on another planet. Because here's the thing, like, if the gravity is not in the golden zone, or whatever they call it, the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah. That's more like a temperature distance from the sun kind of thing. Yeah.
But it should also be gravity, because that has a huge effect on musculature and stuff.
Oh yeah, like if we went to Mars and colonized it, like the human race on Mars would no longer be human.
Yeah, because, well, and I don't think we would have time to evolve, because here's the thing, the musculature, we just think of, oh, we would have some trouble walking, but we would probably have trouble pumping blood through our body, because that's a muscle too.
Oh yeah.
I think our offspring would probably not survive if they were born on another planet, because the frail infant is so like if you took an infant, like a newborn, and put it on Mars, I'm pretty sure it would just die.
Well, like, okay, but sure, that would happen if you birthed a human being on Earth and put it on Mars. But what about people colonizing Mars, giving birth? Like,
there's no difference, because it's built into our developmental biology. It's encoded already. Like, the sperm and the egg are already mapped out for something that lives in this gravity.
People can adapt to Mars.
Not that quick.
Well,
it's not going to be,
but they're not going
to be in their genes.
But they're not going to be able to come back necessarily. It's not going to be like the movies where you can just like travel between Earth and Mars willy-nilly, like it doesn't matter. It will matter.
No, adaptation is a thing, but it is not equivalent to evolution.
No, but maybe doesn't evolution happen relatively quickly?
No,
in some cases.
No.
Huh?
No, like, well, unless you're a virus or a bacteria, like it's all based on life cycle. So relative to your life cycle, in any case, it takes a long time. You know, if your life cycle is 12 hours, evolution is going to seem to take forever for you, right?
But yeah, and maybe the like colonizing the moon or Mars or whatnot. Okay, Venus is definitely the place to go, because you can actually go there and thrive and survive.
My point might actually be like the nail on the coffin for Mars, because in Venus you wouldn't have that because of that sweet spot.
Yeah, like the air pressure, the gravity, like temperature, everything is pretty close to Earth. Now we have discovered Earth-like planets. In fact, the more we look, the more we find that basically every star has planets in the Goldilocks zone. It's a
Yeah, but
common
we
thing.
can't reach them in.
Yeah, like, and that is definitely an issue. Yeah, because like, sure, we could colonize the deep sea, right? Like create pods under the ocean and stuff with those immense pressures. Um, but yeah,
So that, I think there's a way around that though,
okay.
and that's using physics to your advantage. So if you were to, and I mean, this would be resource heavy, don't get me wrong, but if you were to create an immense ring around the planet that you want to live on, right? And that was basically your breeding ground. And it had this revolution that was just perfectly attenuated to create, the exact 9.81 meters per second squared gravity situation, right? So you could just go up there, give birth to your kids, wean them and raise them up to a certain point where they could be robust enough to handle slight variations in the atmosphere and the gravity and stuff like that. I think that would actually work. Building small little ring worlds around the
A
world.
ring world. I was gonna say this is like a ring world thing.
Yeah.
But then again, if you could achieve that, why would you ever go back to that place?
Right. The ring world would be the place to be.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could live on any terrestrial surface on planet Earth. So why would you dive deep, like hundreds of meters under the water, to live down in a bubble colony? Like, why would you do that?
Well, it depends on what threat you're running from, right?
Yeah.
If our goal is to escape an impending catastrophic event that's local to Earth, then it makes sense to go build a ring world around Mars or something, right? If we're worried about something way out in the future, like our sun going supernova, well, we got to go further, right?
Yeah.
But like in the here and now, like the most we really have to worry about is giant asteroid or flipping magnetic poles or our own stupidity, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Things that we can theoretically leave behind on Earth.
Well, and those are worthy things like worthy reasons to get out there
Mm-hmm.
and have other people, other humans. I mean, I guess we're worth preserving. Maybe, maybe we're not. Like maybe all of this stuff that's happening, um, maybe we're just destined to be extinguished. I don't want to be so
Yeah, I mean,
morose in that regard, but that is a lesson for
yeah, maybe
others.
it's the octopi turn.
Yeah, well, or the whales.
Yeah.
Star Trek 4. Yeah, I mean, ooh, wow, this has gone all over the place. This is actually a very interesting conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really think critically about space travel without thinking about the human condition and all that entails.
Well,
Right?
Space travel is all about the human condition, as is every expedition into the unknown.
Yeah.
That's what we do. In fact, that's a survival.
But we usually just think about what we could gain from it. We don't necessarily always think about what we could lose from it.
I think that's considered, but it's a risk reward analysis kind of thing. A lot of people do crazy ass things. I mean, think about the people that lashed together some logs and ferried themselves across oceans like millennia ago. and
Yeah, but
walked across the icy land bridge to
they
go to new frontiers.
they didn't necessarily have any reason to think that their offspring could never survive. You know, there
No,
was
well,
threats, yes, but there was no universal threat like different gravity. You know, it wasn't
that
anything
is
that
true.
it
Yes,
wasn't that epic. You know?
there was an assumption that like the place you're going is going to be fairly similar to the place from which you came.
Yeah. Yeah, our wussy ancestors, they had a chance at least. You know, we're going to space. You know, we don't have a fucking chance.
Now, of course, there is a difference that like they didn't understand everything. They didn't know what they were up against. They didn't have like satellite imaging and GPS and all that kind of stuff, all the history and knowledge that we have today. So it could, I mean, all the tales told kind of suggest that people thought, well, you know, you get this far out and we're going to fall off the edge of the earth, or it's going to be boiling seas, or it's going to be, you know, some kind of weird place that's going to kill us. So I don't know that they necessarily knew what they were getting themselves into.
No. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Like from a bravery standard, they actually didn't know what they were up against. We do know what we're up against though, and we can kind of foresee some of these issues. And so even though they didn't know, you know, practically and scientifically speaking, they actually had a pretty good shot. Practically and scientifically speaking, out there in space, not such a great shot.
No, space is a very, very dangerous place to be.
Yeah. And it's not just conjecture, you know. Like
no. I mean, there's all kinds of factors. Radiation and gravity and the time involved, like the fact that going to the nearest star to us is, what is it, like 4.3 light years away? We can't travel the speed of light. So imagine sitting in a spacecraft. Let's say we could travel the speed of light, like 4.5 years with a bunch of people you don't like inside a little tiny minivan, and you get there and you don't even know what's there. You know,
yeah.
and that's the nearest place to us. The galaxy is huge. The distances are so vast, and we don't even know what's there. I mean, we can image things from here and kind of guess, but we don't know. And I mean, I gotta give credit to people who are willing to put their balls out there and be like, well, if you're a woman, metaphorical
Put
balls,
their fallopian tubes and
yeah, exactly.
out there.
Put your sexual organs out on the line to go explore, because that is what we do. And we owe, all of us, in fact everybody on earth, wherever you are, we owe our own existence to the explorers that came before, the people that went out there and found new places. And we're going to find new places again. Like I don't think this is going to be the end.
I almost wonder if we should turn our attention toward other dimensions or other realities, however you want to call it. You know, dimensions is probably the wrong word, but
well, it's an easy thing to understand for people.
Yeah, because you know that's not far away at all.
Yeah.
The only barrier is our understanding, really.
Yeah, exactly. How do you fold yourself into the fourth dimension? I mean, if you understood that, my guess is it's probably something that once you understand it, it's very obvious. Like riding a bike, right? Before you've set foot on a bicycle, it's a foreign thing. Like it looks all scary and precarious, but once you get on it, you ride it, it's only obvious how it works. It's very
Yeah.
simple. It's actually super simple. And you look at all these other people with their training wheels and you're like, what an idiot. And that's
But
kind of where we are, I think, in that regard.
but I'm thinking more of the alternate reality than the additional layers to dimensions and stuff. Like, say we could travel into a reality where sentient life never existed, but there's still plenty of trees and stuff that we could make usage of, and it wouldn't really impact anybody, you know? Like, what if we drew on our resources from a place where there's nothing, with a brain that's depending on it,
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh man.
I don't know if any, I mean, all of that's really theoretical anyway, so I doubt there's a whole lot of effort put into that. But when you really think about all the little decisions that we make and how we really don't know what time is, we don't know if it's just a linear string. We don't know if it's just something fluid or something that repeats itself or diverges into different branches. There's so many different theories.
Oh yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, like is it like Groundhog Day? Oh man. I mean, the butterfly effect to like one tiny decision, one tiny thing that you did could change the course of the entire existence of humanity.
oh yeah.
It's that's a pretty deep thought.
Like, there's probably some reality where we decided to do a different topic tonight and we became super popular and mega rich, and everyone realized what philosophical geniuses we are, and we solved all the world's problems, and we picked the wrong topic tonight.
Well, it's possible, but maybe,
or this is the right topic.
Yeah, what if this is the one that actually matters? Not the one that gives us fame and fortune, but it's the one that actually changes the universe, the world, I guess. And therein lies the question, like, oh man, wow, this is this is really deep. Holy shit. Man. And these are things worthy of pondering too.
I mean, if I knew a decision that I made would branch into either becoming mega rich and popular, or 500 years from now resulting in something so epically cool as, like, continuing the human race on another planet, I would definitely go that way and go to the other planet, even though I'd never see it. Like, that would be so cool to just,
well,
if you knew that going into it. Like,
that's something that is really interesting about like science and engineering, that so many people have developed things that didn't do anything in their time, and only after they were long dead was it seen as like a really valuable thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole contention between the idea of, like, I don't know, just, the value of things, like the whole idea of capitalism, the greed that goes into it. It's like, what do you really gain from having a lot, like, more stuff than other people? What are you really contributing there? Like, you're basically just serving yourself and living the best life you can live, and then you'll expire and you've left nothing for the world.
Well, and we can get into our differing definitions of capitalism at some point, but yeah, like, it, you can't take it with you. And sure, there's something to be said for a little bit of happiness, right? Like the fruits of your labor, like getting something out of it. Sure, that's fine. But the world, your existence, the everybody's existence is bigger than that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's kind of like a happy middle, I guess, like where you can have, well, I don't want to say you can have your cake and eat it too, but you know, have some enjoyment out of what you've done, but also leave something behind, leave a
Yeah.
legacy. Like
Well,
leave.
Have you heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes.
Like, yeah, you can have everything you need and be perfectly happy and content, and you don't need excess. You don't
Well,
need.
but needs, okay, there's a problem with needs. Um,
But is there?
well,
If you're happy, like
okay,
you're
but
happy.
needs and happiness are not the same thing. Like meeting your needs doesn't necessarily make you happy. I think that's abundantly clear by the human condition today. Um, you don't merely need to exist. You need to thrive and feel like what you've done means something, or you, whatever, like fulfill some sort of dream.
I would argue that's a need, though.
Well,
Everyone's needs are
it
different.
is, but how can you define that?
Well, it's a personal choice. Like if you feel that's what you need, like, but when you need something, right, you tend to not have an excess of it. Like you get what you need and you use it. And then if you need more, you get more and you use that. Like there's not a whole lot like would you go and buy like 17 tons of yogurt if you're like, oh, I really love yogurt and I need yogurt, but it's like
Yes.
it's going to expire
Yes,
before I
that's
can eat it
exactly
all.
what people do. Why do you think there's so many hoarders?
Yeah.
Like, why are there so many hoarders? Why do people fill their houses with collections of stuff? That's what people do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe solving that question bring would bring peace to people who are struggling with that. Um, because yeah, it's not a need to fill your house with beanie babies, but people did it. They sold their houses. They leveraged their mortgages to buy beanie babies, stupid beanbag animals. You know, you name it, whatever it is, whatever collections people have, the hoarders, people collect all kinds of bullshit stuff. Do they need it? No, but they get it. And I mean, maybe it could be maybe there's an explanation from my grandma on my dad's side. So my grandma grew up in poverty, didn't have a lot of money, um, was pretty poor.
The couponer?
She couldn't afford books, and so she became a nurse. She married my grandpa, who was a surgeon, a doctor, and both of them together had plenty of money. And so she dialed it up to 11. And when she had all the money, she just bought all the books.
Hmm.
The house was full of fucking books, magazines, you name it. So many books, like just books for the sake of books. Like it wasn't even things she was interested in. It was like, well, I have to have this book because I couldn't get books before. And so now I have to like fill my house with books. I don't understand that, but I kind of do.
So that wasn't the grandmother that was all into coupons then, I guess.
No, that was on my mom's side. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting parallel, or not parallel, but other word. Contrast, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Beer. It's hot. Yeah. So it's like, you know, what is a need? I mean, and what is happiness, and how does fulfilling a need, or does fulfilling a need bring happiness, or does it merely bring you back to zero again?
And I mean, is happiness, does that even need to be the goal?
Yes. Well,
Why?
okay. I think it should be part of it. Like that should be part of your exploration, but exploration should be the goal too. Well, things I've learned, I guess. Like happiness is important, but so is teaching people. Sharing what you've learned, um, cataloging that for future generations, knowing, because again, you can't take it with you. You could have all the money in the world, but it doesn't mean anything when you die.
Yeah.
All the you could have all the gold, all the cars, all of whatever, you name it, you're dead, it's gone. And it's going to a bunch of different people. So my thought is we'll leave a legacy, teach
Yeah.
people things, like experience things, try to learn, teach people, try to make the world a better place than when you entered it. And I found once I made that kind of my prime directive, I feel very happy. Like it's rewarding to
Yeah.
know that there's going to be. I don't have any kids. You and I don't have any kids, so we've got nothing beyond that. So it's like, my children are the people I've influenced and taught and asked questions to and had conversations with and changed minds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
it should always be for a positive, like in a positive direction. Like you want to make people better, you make the world a better place. That's always
Yeah.
my goal.
Well, yeah. I over this last weekend, I've had a third person now say that I've inspired them to write a book.
What?
And another person said that my experiences with cancer really like inspired them. So like I'm seeing that I've I've affected other people that may have children of their own. And, even though I don't, a piece of me has contributed to that legacy some way. So in that way, I do feel a sense of fulfillment,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
and,
that is a, yeah.
like I feel like that might be why the aliens don't want us to join them in space yet. Kind of bringing it around to the beginning of the conversation is because maybe we all haven't really like got on board with what the point is, the meaning of life.
Yeah.
It's going to be different for everyone, but it really should have a kind of a core, commonality of extending what we consider life, to last as long as possible. And
Well,
that
and
and that
yeah.
requires a level of altruism, that requires a level of charity, it requires a level of doing things that others will benefit from long after you cease to exist.
Even if you never see
Yep.
the fruits of your labor, like it could be 100 years from now, and
Mm-hmm.
everything
Because,
you've done has made a difference.
because we can argue all day about whether or not happiness matters, but there are so many people that can't meet their needs that they don't even have the chance to contribute to the world in all the ways that they're potentially capable of,
Oh
because
yeah.
they're so busy trying to survive.
Yeah,
And there's so
exactly.
many people that have way more than they could ever spend in their life, whether it's money or time or whatever,
Mhm.
like whatever currency you choose.
Resources of
Yeah.
some sort. Yeah.
Whatever you want to choose. There are people who hoard that they could be sharing.
Well, and that's a very interesting point, is acquisition um the genesis of happiness, or is sharing, or is something else? that. I mean, maybe it's something that is subjective.
I mean, it is.
It definitely
I
is.
think there's a lot of sociological sway, right?
Yeah.
Um, the appeal of having anything you want out of whatever your whims are, you're able to get it whenever you want it. Now. All that stuff's really appealing. But if you've never actually experienced um the anomaly, let's say, because it is kind of an anomaly of being happy without having excess, without having even all your needs met. If you've never experienced the good feelings from helping another person, even when you yourself don't have much to give, like, you probably don't understand the true core, like, nature of happiness. Like,
Oh man. Yeah. No, you're right. That.
because like
Exactly.
I survived off of food banks and food stamps and stuff. And then when I kind of got on my feet, even though I still don't have my shit together. But like, I will give anytime I feel I'm slightly capable of it. Even though it would do me better personally to save that money, I'm giving it away,
Yeah.
and I see a greater net benefit in that. But if you don't have that experience, how would you ever know that? You know,
Well,
it's
yeah,
no fault of your
exactly.
own, like you just never experienced that and never learned it. So,
Exactly. That people have this notion that having things or being uh, in the loop, that the I've got all the cars, all the houses, all the girls, whatever, that's happiness.
mm,
But then I would say, are you happy? Like you'd said, people that have nothing can be entirely happy.
yeah,
And that does raise the question, like, what is the source of happiness? What makes somebody happy? And it, what if the experience of having nothing and being happy is what shows you the true meaning of what's valuable and happiness inducing, I guess.
huh,
and
interesting.
and and you know comparison, as they say, comparison is the thief of joy. um Comparing yourself to other people, like, they seem happy, but are they really?
Yeah,
A lot of people I know who have a lot of people who have tons of money, millionaires, all kinds of stuff, they're kind of miserable. Like, the
yeah,
money doesn't make them happy, the possessions don't make them happy. And that, like, that directive, like, oh, if I just get more stuff, if I have just a little bit more money, I'm finally going to be happy. No, you're not. You're
yeah.
going to be actually more miserable if you let that go. If you stop caring about those things, you're going to be happier than you've ever known. um
I think it comes down to the base needs. It's like we've got our preferences, the things. I think we're fulfilling preferences over needs, and we're conflating the two things, right?
mhm.
Like, if I were starving to death, I haven't eaten in 2 weeks, and somebody handed me a pickle, I'd bite into that pickle. But I
Yeah.
hate pickles. But I would probably be like, oh, this is great. Like, I feel so happy now, like, because I have food.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care that it's a pickle, it's food. And like, when you break it down to that core element, that is an actual need that's being fulfilled. And
Yeah.
You've gone from hyper focusing on how you're not going to die to not having that worry. And
Yeah, I would say that like needs are things that you truly require to survive.
right.
Oxygen, shelter, temperature, food, water, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, those are needs. Um, Wi-Fi, nah, that's not a need. But there are people who will like kill themselves because they don't have Wi-Fi. Ugh. It really does kind of bring perspective. Like honestly, if you feel like your life is bad, just look around the world and see what other people have to deal with. And you're going to find that your life is actually, well, if you live where we live in the US, like your life is probably okay. I mean, as long as you're not being like abused or something like that, um, it's probably okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if you can parse it down to countries so much.
No, I wouldn't. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that, but just for the sake of simplicity,
Yeah.
hmm, geographical things. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like the hierarchy of needs is so individualistic. And because there are more than just biological needs. There are mental and emotional needs as well, which are not as easily, I don't know, you can't think of them as easily because they're not tangible, right?
Well, they're not easy to define because they're subjective.
Yeah.
Like what matters to you may not matter to me.
Right. Yeah. Like you could be horribly depressed if you go 6 months without having any human contact, like somebody hugging you or
Yeah.
something, like it could be something right down to that, like a sensory thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then the next guy could be like, I don't care. I could go 5 years without seeing another human, and I'd be happy, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so individualistic that you can't really, you can't just write a chapter in a book about exactly what you need in order to be happy and survive and all that stuff. It's so different.
Yeah, it's entirely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Wow.
Yeah.
This
I mean, and the pandemic has shown us a lot of this, right? Like there have been people who have been driven to suicide because there weren't people around, you
yeah.
know,
And then there are people who are like, yeah, this is awesome.
they're thriving. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Like,
so it's really telling when something like that happens, how there is no one right way for society to be.
yeah.
You've got to get out there and make your immediate environment what you need.
Yeah. And stop reading magazines and stop letting other people tell you how you should be happy. You should know how to be happy and strive to like aim for that. Like make it happen.
Yeah.
And if you can't, like, well, a lot of people can't do a lot of things. I would love to have a 70-foot catamaran or trimaran, but I can't. So, well, I'll have to settle for what I can get, um, and that's okay. Like that's life. Yeah. Oh man. Oh well.
Well, we've come a far way from aliens and space travel, and
I think it's actually kind of connected.
yeah.
Or it could just be the fact that I'm overheating here up in my uh, upstairs
Your
space.
sweat lodge.
Yeah, it's a very warm here.
You're having visions now.
Yeah. I had visions every night. Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's interesting what where we take a conversation, and it shows just how connected all these subjects really are, and
how complex this show really is. I mean, this is literally the best show on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Kind of sad that not enough people realize it, but hey, this is the thing. Going back to what we said, you leave a legacy. Like, yeah. I know that this channel might not necessarily it may not come to fruition in my lifetime. But throwing this out there, we have all our music, all kinds of stuff, like hundreds of conversations and different topics and stuff. Maybe someday it'll help someone. That's my hope.
Yeah. I don't know that anyone has ever hung around to the end for a song. Just looking at the YouTube analytics, I almost think we should just throw it in the middle somewhere now. Just throw a wrench in the system.
We put it in the very beginning. If you want to skip to the song, here's the timestamp. Oh, God.
But people don't care. Like if somebody just walked up to you on the street and said, hey, if you stand right here for an hour, you're going to hear a song.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really enticing enough to hang around for an hour? I don't know, maybe not. But maybe if we just randomly threw it in.
This shows we could reuse some of our old songs, all the really good ones. Oh man.
Well, if you're a diehard fan, if you're one of Eric's girlfriends, because I think that's all we do the show for now. Is I think that's our entire audience is your girlfriends. Thanks for deep sink diving with us into space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of kitchen sink, my cross puppies.
I want to believe. Yes, the truth is out there. Oh, well, yep. Thanks for everybody for deep sink diving. I think we're coming up on like an hour and a half. It's probably a good point to end.
Yeah. So I'd say hang around for the song, but it's nobody watching anymore anyway. So fuck you.
Yeah. If you're still here, fuck you. Because you're never going to see this. Oh, wait. Hold on a second.
Are you going to whip out your balls?
Like, well, how can we be demonetized if somebody can't?
Yeah. We'll test if even the YouTube algorithm is able to sit through a whole episode.
It's a giant dick like swinging around. Oh man,
we gotta do that sometime.
Yeah.
Hour and a half in, we just swing our dicks around. See if we get demonetized or not.
Like slapping on the webcams, like. Oh man. We should test like what it takes to be demonetized. Like how far can we really take it? Oh man. Well, that's something for another video. If you stuck it out this long, go ahead and leave a comment, and we might just do that experiment in the future.
Leave a comment if you want to see our dicks.
Oh man, what a way to end an episode talking about private space travel. How did it devolve? Well, that I think
All
it was-
aboard the USS Dix.